So, welcome to Warwick. Am I doing this or are you doing this, Christy?
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, welcome to Warwick Zoom Garden Plot meeting. This is season 5, episode number 3. And okay, come on, move to the next one. Come on. There we go. And tonight's agenda is garden updates, the village of Greenwood Lake, New York Community Garden, and Christopher Harrison's Community Garden. Announcements, Q&A, and here we go. Greenwood Lake Community Garden. Sorry for the misspelling.
Garden.
Yes,
That's a fascinating misspelling.
I like that. I think we're gonna change our name. I like that. With a common ground community garden. That's our official name. But there's about 5,000. There's about 10 million common ground community gardens, so it's okay. Maybe we'll change the spelling like that.
Presented by Chad, and I am going to click the first set of pictures, and here we go. Chad, take it over.
Thank you. As you well know, I am infamously horrible picture taker, but hopefully I did better this time. Not so many thumbs in the picture. This is the front of our garden. I'm pretty bad at naming plants, but the whole front we choose to put a lot of beautiful native pollinators all on the front. And Gillian, who's on this call, rebuilt a planter out front, which had rotted. So she redid it in record time. But we have, I believe, Bee Balm and Black-Eyed Susans.
Elena helped.
Oh yeah, Elena, you could, if you feel free to name some at the end. We have the tree in the corner is a plum cherry that I got a bunch of years ago from Eric Schellenberger at Black Creek Farm, I think is the name where it is. So that's the front, and we try to give good instructions because we are an open garden, community garden, no membership needed, free, open to all. So that's a big mission this year is to try to really make it as user friendly as possible. So you go to the next picture.
It looks beautiful.
Thank you. It's all me. I'm just kidding. All right, that's a close-up of the plum cherry that we started with from a little twig. I think it's in its 3rd year now, so it's really growing nicely. And we have 2 more. I'll probably show them later. And that's a weird angle, but that is a potato straw pile I made. I'm going to try a new technique this year of layering straw, compost, put the potatoes around the edges, another layer of straw, another layer of compost. So I have about like 4 or 5 layers in there. So it was interesting just to see how that works out. So I like the concept of it, that they can grow kind of into the pile, and you're not taking up much space because we don't have a lot of extra space. So that's hopefully will work well. I'll update you guys. And you go next. I like how you have like a lapse dissolve. Very, very emotional. Then this is the side of the garden we have that's gets very boggy. Kind of a lot of that's how we got the plot in the first place, because it's actually a very high water table and you can't build anything there. But we do, but miraculously things are growing there quite beautifully. We have a lot of ferns. I don't know if you can make that out. Sonia planted a bunch of ferns last year and they're coming in. We have ramps and false indigo and comfrey is in there somewhere in that pile. And again, Elena, I don't know if you could probably name 10 or 12 other really beautiful native pollinators we have growing along that side. Perhaps maybe Christopher Harrison could hopefully help us with that water mitigation.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because it gets very messy. All right, and you can move on. I wish I could name the plants better, which would make that more interesting, but you could continue on. And we planted a bunch of plots are in, a lot of cool weather stuff in there. We have kale, radishes coming up already. We planted peas very early on with this. I should have put a picture of that. We had the elementary school come and do pea planting, which is just really a lot of fun. Really adorable kids, and we just have them put them along the gate And we have a Swiss
Did they
chard
sing
in
the
there.
song? Did they
No,
sing
no,
the song?
no, we should have had you there leading the chorus. Um, right, but Sylvia is also helping us this year. We're going to try to be much more organized in our rows. Like as Sarah knows, unlike a regular community garden where everyone just gets their own plot and every year they kind of dig it up and start over again, we're continuing on. So more and more things are volunteering to come up. So it's so interesting to see what's left over from last year, like arugula self-seeded from last year. So we have a ton of arugula. We had rutabaga and turnips, but they kind of bolted. But I'm letting them stay because I have the beautiful little blossoms and the bees are enjoying that. I can't even see this one. If I could focus. Oh, that's the ramps there. That's the ramps on the side. And again, this one has bok choy, kale, spinach, and radish. And we have a bunch. Well, all right, next picture. Maybe I'll show you some of the other perennials.
I'm sorry, did you already mulch that bed? It looks like there's seeds in there, but I
Yeah.
don't see something up, but it's already mulched.
Yeah, we had a lot of seedlings in there, so it was they were starting to grow, so I let them come up a bit. And usually I don't put straw until later, but I saw they were kind of growing at a pretty healthy pace. So, and I don't like the bare soil, and I know we should use ground cover, but sometimes I don't. Maybe Christopher Harrison could help explain that a little bit better. I always feel that the ground cover is going to take over. I never know what to do with it, but maybe one year I'll do that. Then this year we're going to really try. We have these big poles that I put in. We're going to hopefully grow the tomatoes up here, and Gillian found some interesting pulleys. So we're going to tie the tomatoes up and kind of pull them up as they grow. So we're hoping that they could grow. We're going to encourage the tomatoes to grow 7, 8 feet tall. So that's where the tomatoes will be. This little
It's
tree.
only where tie to a stick at the bottom, but as the tomato grows, you clip them to the line as they go up. They're very cool.
Yes, so we're gonna try that.
And I posted friends of Grow Local Greenwood Lake page.
Oh, thank you. This little tree here is a pawpaw, which is growing this is the 3rd year, so it's growing very slowly. But we have another one that's even growing slower, but I'm very excited. These are going to take a long time to bring about fruit, but we ain't going anywhere. So we have that. Next pictures, please. Or not.
Is there because it seems, and I'm seeing them, but I guess you're getting a delay
no,
on your
no.
end.
There
Oh,
it
here we
is
go.
now.
Oh, my
Yes.
internet connection is unstable. That's not good.
Uh-oh,
Okay.
hope we don't lose everything. And then we're
Yeah.
right here on the other side by the creek, these garlic against the fence. We planted artichoke. You can see those 2 little tiny things. I'm really hoping to get artichoke this year, and I got those from Midsummer Farm. And Barbara said she did something to them that they should really kind of hopefully bloom this year. I forgot what she wrote, something in an email that she did some technique to help them bloom faster. Then this big perennial here is a Turkish rocket. And that also, that's edible. It's a little bitter. You just have to cook it. And then that's also going to bloom those little things that they supposedly taste like broccoli rabe, the little flowers. So, we're really trying to encourage during that one other side, we're really trying to grow a lot of perennials. And next picture, see, there's my shadow. It's not too bad. And here we have beets. They're coming up pretty strong already. So we have a ton of beets, and then we planted another planting of beets. And this is, I don't know, I'm blind, I can't see. On the other side. Could you see what that is, Gil? No, I don't think so. I know. I'm like really I'm losing that vision, but I know that's nothing that's blooming. I don't know what. I can't see, sorry. So beets, and then I did take a picture of that for some reason. Oh wait, maybe let me check my phone. Maybe I can see it better. All right. Getting old. Oh, I think that's arugula. There's arugula. Yes, that's arugula with all the flowers on it, and even arugula you can still eat even when it bolts, which is still quite delicious. And I'm like addicted to arugula, and there's a bunch coming in behind it, so that's I keep on chomping down on that. So we got beets there and arugula, and then if you want to go turn to the next picture, right now we're still doing a lot of weeding. A ton of stuff is coming up from last year. I don't know all right, and then that's the other side again. You can see the garlic coming up, and that here. I'm trying to see where that other stuff is.
Do Gillian or Elena recognize that one?
Oh wait, oh, here's the picture. Let me zoom up. Oh, those are blueberries. That's like a little patch of blueberries which are going very slowly along the gate. We planted about 10 or 12 blueberry plants, and there are little blueberries coming, but I think we definitely need to add more acidity to the soil. So that is a blueberry patch. And then we have the garlic, and then what else am I trying to show here? I do think we have rhubarb in that. I think I planted some rhubarb.
Hey, Chad, do you have any pine trees anywhere around close by?
No,
To the
but I think people put a lot of pine. Is that what's coming up all over those little things?
Well, that's what
Those
you
little.
want to put around the blueberries.
Oh,
If you've got any
yeah,
pine
someone did
trees
that
around,
then.
my mom has prolific blueberries. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, and that'll be very effective for dropping the pH in the soil in a natural way that you're not putting in any
oh,
chemical additives and really boost their
you
production.
know what? Someone did that. Someone did drop a lot of pine needles.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So all right, so we could go to the next picture. Wait, let me see what else is not supposed to be there.
Okay. Let me know when.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay.
And I'll move this along. Sorry.
Doesn't bother me. You're only going to miss the ranger.
I know, right? This is a big. That's the back of a hoop house, and you see we try to use strawberries as ground cover, and we have strawberries on this whole bed, and behind it we have asparagus that's already starting to come up. I don't know if you could see some of the asparagus spears coming up. We just planted them last year, so we have a few more years to go
Oh,
before
yeah.
we could harvest those. And
Chad,
yes,
do you have trouble with like the chipmunks and the squirrels eating your strawberries?
not as of yet. We have a fence around everything, but again, chipmunk, a squirrel could certainly get through there. But we do have a
We
lot
don't
of
The
we have a lot
feral
of cats.
colony
Yeah.
next door, which keeps down the chipmunk population.
Yes, we have a cat colony that is well taken care of. They're all neutered, and I guess they are definitely helpful when it comes to keeping away the critters like squirrels, chipmunks, and any other rodents. There are like 6, 7 cats that are literally around the garden. And here I let these I think rutabaga and turnips bolt, and I think it looks pretty, and the bees like it. So I'm like, why not leave it there till we're gonna plant. Then we can pull it out when we're gonna plant something. But as of now, I'm leaving it there. You go to the next picture, please. This is speaking of Christopher, these are chives from Christopher Harrison gave us a few years ago, growing beautifully, and also a bed of strawberries, which is very dense. We actually had to pull out a lot of strawberries because they were spreading all over the place. And we've been offering people free strawberries to come by and take some. So that was hopefully it will take us up on that offer. And here I love this picture. This is a giant fennel. We have then we left the stalks of last year, and you could see them growing up again through the bottom. So yeah, again, I got that from Midsummer Farm. I think 1 or 2 fennel, and it became like almost like a fennel tree. So it just really grew very well. And again, surrounded strawberries. Yes.
On the strawberry transplants, how late is it okay to transplant those? I guess they're tough plants, but I mean, if I did them now or a couple weeks from now, is that a good time for transplanting strawberries?
I think there's and they're you know, they last, they're perennial, so they're gonna, I mean, you might miss this particular, all right, unless someone has some different information, I think you could put them in now.
Yeah,
You
I
can
think
put them
so.
in now, but you're not going to get any yield off of ones that are planted in the same year. You're not going to
They're
get
pretty
yield until
hardy.
year 2.
Right,
You
but
can
they,
also, they also have runners. You can take the runners and stick them into a small pot and then pot them up from the runners.
yeah, that's what we've been pulling that up and then, you know, giving it that to people.
Chad, can
Yes.
you transplant the strawberries in the fall?
Yeah, I think you could do it whenever you want.
Okay.
Because again, they are perennials, so they're not gonna,
Right.
you know, it's not, again, like Christopher, you're probably gonna miss you're probably not gonna get strawberries that season, but they could definitely establish themselves.
Right.
Yeah, fall is ideal, I think.
Yeah,
got
I've
them-
done them in the fall and it works well.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, next pictures, please. Sorry.
We got a little bit of you in there, Chad, in that second picture.
Yeah.
I see your shadow.
Oh, yeah, funny. Usually my finger or my shadow or something. This is our compost area, 4-bin system, and you can see my bags of leaves that I keep on jumping out of my car and collecting. And buckets where I probably could organize them, but people come and drop off their compost in these buckets, and then I add them to the piles. And we have a keyhole bed that Gillian made this year. I filled up a bunch today with soil. It takes a lot of damn soil, even though I'm putting logs and straw and you know, to fill it up using other means, but it's still very big. So it's like no matter how much soil I put in, it keeps on going down. But hopefully we're gonna be ready in the next week or two to start planting into it. And that concept of the keyhole bed, as we know from one of our earlier members, is there's a right behind that sign, there's a little hole that you could drop compost right down into it. So that, you know, it'll actually break, it's almost like a compost bin. It breaks down the compost from the bottom up. So hopefully this bed should get more and more, you know, productive as the years go on. I'm gonna give you the next picture. Yeah, probably took too many.
Hey,
This,
Chad, on the picture of the keyhole garden, do you have anything that, like, any sort of rods extended or rebar extended down through that wall in order to link
Yes.
those together? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's an inside of our hoop house, which we have a bunch of seedlings going on, you could see. And, you know, we could raise and lower the sides depending on the weather. And here's our shed, and Christopher Harrison made this amazing rainwater catchment that has caught a lot of water, and we just fill up time after time, and we're using that really well. And you know, I'm probably going to plant like pepper and eggplant. I'm not gonna let tomatoes grow in the hoop house like last year. It was too crazy. They, like, you know, you couldn't even walk in there, like they were too big. So even though they grow really wonderfully, it was just a little too hard to maneuver around. So I'm going to try to do some like smaller plants that are heat loving. And you can go next.
Okay. Oh, that was it. That's
All
it.
right. Beautiful. Any questions or comments?
One question. Where did you get your blueberry bushes?
Midsummer Farm, and I think a few other people donated. Like over the years, it's built, but they are growing slowly. But
Do they
probably-
produce?
no, we put them in last year, and they're still kind of coming along. Like, it's funny, there are a few, you know, I think I see about 20 blueberries kind of forming on them. Again, they're outside the fence, so I'm sure they'll be picked clean. But hopefully, you know, in the next few years, they'll really start taking off. And then, you know, the fact that we put them so close to the fence, we can cover them if we need to, you know, kind of add a little addition to just keep the critters away. But I got a bunch from Midsummer Farm, and I do remember someplace else, but I can't remember what the name of it is. But we do have about 10 of them planted, but I'm hoping they will grow, but they are growing slowly at this point. And again, anything that grows here is tricky because I'm telling you, you know, if a bunch of, you know, if you get a lot of rain, the whole area gets
All right.
very flooded, but more things have survived than I imagined they would in the first place.
There's a movement to put blueberry bushes in our orchard. I'm
Mhm.
mostly concerned about the birds and the squirrels taking everything.
You have to. We have them, and we have to cover. We have to net it for the birds. If we don't, we don't have any blueberries. Very
that's-
few.
That's what I told the blueberry faction. So you,
Well, you could give it a shot. I mean, again, it's still a pretty, it's not a horrible thing unless you're
no,
type.
no, it's not that. The bushes they found were $20 a pop. It's the
Mm.
money.
Oh, now again, my technique I found last year to keeping all these is I just wrapped everything in fishing line,
Uh-huh.
all like crazy, like, after the flowers went, and then it does seem to confuse any of the birds or stuff that come along because they just like kind of bump into this invisible thing that whacks them. And last year I got all my elderberry, I got all my hazelnuts,
Nice.
I got all my berries. So
All
that
right.
seems because the netting I find to be difficult sometimes. The netting gets caught inside the branches,
Mhm.
but that's my technique.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Okay, the next up is Christopher Harrison's garden, presented by Christopher Harrison. And I'm going to go to the next slide and we can start with the pictures. There we go.
Okay, thanks,
Christopher?
Michael. Still waiting for it to come in.
Yep, sorry about
Oh,
that.
it came in for me.
Yeah, me too. Isn't
Okay,
that weird?
there we go. Okay,
Yeah.
one of the main themes that I want to kind of touch on with all of this is the idea of turning things over to nature more in our gardens. And this is something that it's taken me a long time to get to this point. I've been gardening pretty heavily for the whole time that we've been in Warwick, so about 17 years now. And I just dabbled in it, before then when I lived in a co-op. And I've finally gotten to the point that I've learned to really trust a lot of natural processes a lot more. So this first picture here is just an idea of with the garlic that I have coming in, and a lot, if you can see here, this is mulched pretty heavily with leaves. It's always a good idea once the necks start showing up and everything to start mulching them. It'll conserve moisture and you'll get better growth below ground. But these leaves were actually even double purposed because they were the leaf mulch that was on this same bed a little bit further down, kind of towards the top of that picture, when I had overwintered carrots in here. So it made it, just by kind of planning it out that way, it made it very easy to move that mulch as I harvested the carrots and the tops of the garlic were starting to show through, to simply move it over there. This picture here on the right is actually looking down, where my method that I've gone back to for tomatoes after trying trellises for years is to grow them in cages. But I'm growing multiple tomatoes in large tomato in a cage. And these rebar mesh. So the nice, it's a pretty thick gauge metal on there, so it tends to be pretty solid. It can hold the weight of the tomatoes, but also all the openings in them are about 6 by 6 inches. So it's easy to reach your hand in all the way, get to the tomatoes in the middle. And my plan with this is that by using multiple tomatoes, either 2 in the smaller ones or 3 in the bigger cages, it will also help to kind of prevent it from tipping over in one direction or another. The tomatoes will kind of picture this year. These are all volunteers. And I've gotten a lot more comfortable with that, especially earlier in the season, and trusting to a lot of our greens production coming from volunteers from the previous year, and just kind of working around wherever they go in order to maximize the amount of space. Insert other next slide, please.
Okay, I clicked it. You should be seeing it shortly.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you guys have questions, please go ahead and let me know.
I don't know about others, but I'm getting a lot of delays. I'm going to
Yeah.
suggest a lot of us turn off our videos and go on mute. And of course, take it off if you have a question to ask, but maybe that will help with the speed.
I would love to hear more about what you mean by overwintering carrots.
Okay. That's a relatively there we go. Okay. That's a pretty easy one. I just plant my carrots for the following year. I'll plant them in usually towards the end of July. And that'll give them enough time to get good above ground growth, pretty good below ground growth. But the idea is that you want to plant them so not only you get a fall crop, but those carrots will remain in the ground beyond the first day of winter. And all you have to do is get some thick mulch. I like to use shredded leaves on it, but you could use hay, straw, anything, any kind of especially brown organic matter like that. And you're going to heap that on to where it's going to be about 6 to 12 inches thick. You're not worried if the tops die back, because once you get past that first hard frost, and especially into mid to late October, is taking in anything from the sun. The whole premise of this, and really I grow carrots pretty much exclusively in the fall now, I don't even really grow them much in the spring, is that when you get the sub-freezing temperatures, that the starches in the carrots will convert themselves to sugars. So when you come out in January and February and there's nothing else fresh at that point, you can come out and just scrape back a section of the mulch and go ahead and dig in with your spading fork or whatever. The reason that you mulch it is to keep it from freezing heavily underneath of there, even if the temperatures get below freeze. Honestly, be the sweetest carrots you've ever had in your life. You saute them up with butter, or steam them, and then mix them together with butter, maybe a little bit of sage on them, a little bit of salt. They are unbelievable. So does that answer your question regarding the overwinter carrots?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How long can you leave them in? Like, what's the latest that you could harvest them if you're kind of trying to use it as like in-ground storage, I guess?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. You need to get them out before, I would say, mid-March at the latest, because what will happen, carrots are biennial, and in their second year, they're going to go to seed. Part of what they do with that, since they're bringing energy out of the roots and bringing them into the top of the plant more in order to produce flowers and produce seed, they need to maintain that structure of the root without it having a lot of energy going to the root. So the size of the carrot will remain roughly the same, but it starts to turn woody and it becomes very unpalatable. If you have those in around the 1st of spring, I mean, they're going to be done. And when you eat one of those carrots, you'll know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and this is just another picture of showing, I believe this was the same bed. This is a bed that actually I put this bamboo lattice in last year, and it used to be a lot higher than that. I actually filled this in with wood chips up against it pretty heavily. The idea was to start raising my beds a little bit, make use of some of the wood chips in the pathways after they had broken down, and throwing them on top. My timing was off a little bit, and it actually inhibited my garden for last year, but I still am trying to build these up in this manner over time. So this is just a simple kind of wattle structure where I split the bamboo for the rails, and it, that way it's pliable pieces that I can kind of wrap back and forth around the posts in a wattle. And the posts are simply pounded down in. And since this is just being used as a temporary retaining structure, once this gets filled up and it decomposes, it just becomes part of the garden as a whole. I just gave a picture here to give an idea of the extent of this volunteer lettuce. I actually harvested some of it today. I really didn't even get much into the lettuce that I sowed for this year, just relying on the volunteers. This picture over here is one that I'd like to draw attention to, only because this is something that has really picked up steam for me in past years, and that is simply by focusing on good soil husbandry. A lot of my herbs are just starting to show up, and they come in different places. I let them come in wherever they are. This is cilantro and dill coming in, and I have not, the cilantro is, I sowed it last year. I had nothing germinate for me, and now all of a sudden it's deciding to come up, not just in areas that I sowed it, but in other areas for some reason this year. And well, I'm just going to roll with that. Dill I've not sowed in probably 5 years. and it comes up in significant quantities every year, just plants scattered throughout the garden. And then that gives me the dill that I use to make fermented pickles with the cucumbers that I have coming in. So that's another way of just kind of working with nature. And if we take care of the ecosystem, then a lot of the things that we want are just going to show up with minimal work on our part, or less work on our part. Okay, next slide, please.
There we go. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Okay, this is the piece I really want to drive into or get into with looking at our gardening like an ecosystem, and that's the subject of weeds. Weeds are plants that show up in our gardens for specific purposes. There are conditions there that are conducive to their growth, and in some ways, these can be things that inhibit us and cause us problems, but others are things that we can kind of work with. One of the things that I love seeing come in my garden every year is the purple dead nettle. I know it's not a native plant, but the bumblebees absolutely go wild over it. It's one of the first things that they're really able to feed heavily on. And it's also something that doesn't really spread too much for me. What it comes in at is how it comes in. And everywhere that you see these coming in, they're covering the soil, they're retaining moisture under the soil. But the other thing is they're providing the fodder for future mulch. Anywhere that there's problems with it conflay other garden plants, I just go ahead and pull it out, or I tamp it down, or what have you. Now, if you look at this picture on the right and you see where this stake is, you see that little heart leaf and that squiggly kind of stalk vining up right there. That's bindweed coming up, and that is one that we do not want to have. But one of the things that I found was, with all of this rain that we've gotten and this living soil that I've taken good care of and developed over many years, is that the bindweed, even though it comes on fast, I can reach down, especially the day after rain, grab around it at the ground. And I was pulling out root sections that were 9 to 12 inches long the other day of this. So I just take that. I don't throw it on the garden. I actually throw the bindweed on the pathways, because I want that to get baked in the sun and not have as good of a medium to root itself back into. On the left,
Christopher, I have a question, because I do the same thing with the weeds. Everyone in my garden takes the weeds, they take it out of the garden, and sometimes they take it with clumps of soil and they bring it to the compost pile and dump it in. And I always take the weeds, and I never remove anything from the garden, because when you remove the weeds, you're removing nutrients, and you're removing from the soil. So I always just like you said, I just put them on top of a pathway, or I put them on top of mulch. I let the sun bake it and let it die. Same with bindweed. And if it's too much, what I'll do is I'll dig a big pit, a deep, very, very deep pit, like 4 or 5 feet, and then I'll just dump it in there and let it rot underneath. And even if it comes up, it's so weak you can pluck it up. But do you do the same thing? You don't throw any. I mean, to me, it's like you're taking nutrients out of the soil when you take weeds and put them in a compost pile. If you're not using the compost, that's my point. We don't use the compost. We just pull it off. So it's like
okay, yeah, I'm sorry, Michael. My practice is a little bit different, only because I have a pretty good sized flock of egg-laying chickens. So in a lot of places, mulch, especially along the sides, but I also will take a lot of them out of there as kind of a green matter, because I do a deep litter floor in my chicken coop that's large scale composting. It's in the neighborhood of probably a few yards at a time. And I also get food scraps from neighbors in a local restaurant and from our house that I throw in there. So pretty much everything gets thrown into that. And I look at it that's going to be a circle, because it comes back to the garden, or it goes to around the fruit trees or something along those lines. But yeah, if you can keep those, if you have strategies that you can keep all of those things on site, all the better, because it decreases the amount of work that you have to do and the amount of moving materials back and
Yeah,
forth.
I find that I weed like 10% of what normal people weed. Once you get it down, the weeding is very minimal. It doesn't really it doesn't take over the garden. And the weeds that do come up, you can
Right, it's
pluck out of there. It's much easier.
yeah, I was going to say it's more spot weeding than
Yeah.
anything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
This picture on the right, the picture on the right here too, I also wanted to point out, you can see where the potatoes are starting to come up through the ground here. I purposely want to have all these weeds on the soil surface because those potatoes are going to outcompete everything else that's on there. In another few weeks, those potatoes are going to be up, 12, 18, 24 inches tall, and they're going to basically block out all of the sun from the weeds. The weeds are going to kind of decline and mulch on their own. And then it's just a matter of looking out for the tops of the bindweed and then feeling down in to pull those out. The picture that's on the left, that plant that's in the middle, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a plant guru by any stretch of the imagination. It's probably one of my weakest points. But that plant in the middle, I believe, is fleabane. This is something that I have learned to let come up in my garden when I see it. And the reason why is as long as it's not in the way of anything, I have found the Japanese beetles go nuts for this plant. Now, you may be asking, why would I want Japanese beetles in my garden? Well, they're going to show up no matter what. And it's kind of a choice between the Japanese beetles eating the leaves off of my bush beans and pole beans. But if I have this leaf bane in there, I'll choose the leaf bane over the beans every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So I find it to be an excellent trap plant. Space in the garden, and it doesn't really provide a lot of shade. And if it's something that is in a place that I don't want it, or it's conflicting or competing with some of the garden vegetable plants that I have, like you can see this one, it's near some of the onions. That one may get pulled up. Now I just kind of let it go. So again, this is another strategy of observation and working with nature and what we see in natural patterns and the feedback that they give us in our garden. So always be on the lookout for those kinds of trap plants among the so-called weeds that spring up in your garden, because they can also save you a lot of work in that way. Next picture, please. Okay, I believe this picture on the left is another, yeah, that's another potato bed, just from a little bit higher up, showing all of the purple dead nettle around, and that's kind of fading out, the purple dead nettle anyway right now. On the right is some of the brassicas that I planted. Now, I did kind of a dumb thing with my brassicas early on where I did not adequately harden them off before transplanting them, and they did not do well on the whole. But I found that the ones that did the best were in this area that's shown on the right, where there's a lot of ground cover already in those places. And all I really did was just clear off the area around them when I dug in the holes and transplanted them, and just kind of left all of the existing weed growth around. And you can see that there's some ground ivy or creeping Charlie there on the bottom. I find creeping Charlie to be something that doesn't really bother me a whole lot. It can form thick mats, but that also then can be pulled up and just kind of shaken out and flipped over a lot of times along the edges to provide a great mat of mulch along the side. And as long as you kind of keep it in check away from the very base of your plants, it won't be a problem. The reason I show this particular area is because these brassicas, even though they weren't hardened off well, did by far the best out of any of them. In fact, a lot of the other brassicas I had placed them because after hardening off, because the first wave just was not looking well at all. But what I've basically done is I've gone back to this after this picture even, and pulled out some of these weeds, just pulled them up out of the ground or break them off at the ground and just kind of mulch them around the base of the broccoli plant. And again, the idea that those weeds end up providing the fodder for mulch that saves me not only having to spend money to bring in outside resources, but it's looking for those loops as close to home as absolutely possible where we don't have to bring in any sort of outside biological resources, period, and can kind of rely on as many inputs that we get close at hand. All right, and you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, yeah, the picture on the left is just more of the potatoes coming up, and on the right gives you an idea of some of these tomato cages. You can see them along there, and the extent to which I allow all these weeds to come in along the edge of the garden beds. And those pathways in between are deep wood chip pathways. I get a lot of weeds that root themselves in there too. And, if they're not bindweed, I will pull them up out of the pathway and just lay them on the side or around plants as mulch. And one of the things that I do here, and I don't know if you can see it all that well, or if it even shows up on here, is I grow a lot of comfrey around my property. And I have some of it that's right along the edge of this garden. What I'll do is when that starts to come in, I will actually start cutting that back pretty hard on a regular basis. And especially this time of year, we're getting a lot of rain and it bounces back quickly. I'll cut that back pretty hard and I will mulch that directly around my tomato plants. And the idea is the comfrey is what we call a dynamic accumulator. It basically sends roots down deep into the subsoil and pulls up nutrients from down below, and then accumulates that in its leaves and above ground growth, rots and puts it back into the soil. In fact, if you take black comfrey and you harvest a bunch of it and you put it into a closed container like a bucket, put a lid on it and let it sit for a few weeks, you'll come back and it'll break almost this black stinky goo that is kind of a slurry almost, that is just loaded with nutrients for your plants. So with having the comfrey around, one of the things I do is, since my tomatoes are heavy feeders and since or anything like that I would need, and I ended up double potting a lot of my tomatoes, which along with them being 12 to 15 inches tall, they're starting to get a little bit stressed from being root bound and nitrogen deficiency. So when I transplanted them, not only did I hit them with diluted fish emulsion, but I'm also kind of mulching comfrey right around the base of the stem a little bit in order to get that to rot down and release those nutrients into the soil and feed the soil biology and really get that cycle humming to where the plants will take off. All right, if there's no questions, we can go on to the next photo. Or if there is a next photo, I'm not sure. Excuse me. Okay. Yeah, this is at my other vegetable garden. I actually have 2 vegetable garden spaces, and this is where I planted a lot of the transplanted peppers the other day. And this really highlights what I was talking about with leaving the living mulch in with the weeds, because you can see very clearly in this picture the circles where I've cleared out any sort of below ground or above ground growth and transplanted the peppers in those spots. And then I've taken everything that was pulled up and laid it down, and also things that were around them, just kind of push it down onto the ground in order that it's not crowding the pepper, that it's allowing it to get full sunlight this time of year. But again, taking every little advantage that we can to conserve moisture, shade the soil, have living material die and rot down on the soil surface and feed all that microbiology that really just makes the nutrient cycles take off. Okay, that's Oh, one other little note is that if you notice, you can see the wood chip pathways on this garden. This garden space, I actually developed. This is my, I want to say my third, no, this is my fourth year planting into this. But when I, no, it's my third year. I'm sorry. But when I first developed this space, I was able to make wonderful use of the wood chip stockpile that used to be over at the Warwick Town Park. And I can't tell you how many truckloads of that I brought back. I would say there's probably 40 to 50, because my soils here are extremely thin and extremely excessively free draining. They're really not good for growing anything. And the fact that my garden soils are as kind of like this chocolate humus is more of a testament to the biology and just all the carbon material that I've built up on top. So I actually built this garden where it was about anywhere from 9 inches to 2 feet thick of wood chips across here, as to kind of get things going, and added in some blood meal, bone meal, and green sand and alfalfa pellets, and put a cover crop on it in the fall into some compost that I just put down in strips to kind of form the garden bed, and it was off to the races after that. And this garden is a literal sponge for moisture as a result. It has so much fungal mycelium in it, it's not even funny. I mean, it's just everywhere you dig, it's almost like there's white fibers. And it just holds the moisture stuff, even during years where we have drought during the summer. I'm sorry, this is my fourth year on this, but when we had the drought 2 years ago, I really didn't need to irrigate it very much. It held the water, and the plants were able to access it even when we didn't get rain for 4 or 5 weeks. So next slide, please. Okay, yeah, this is showing the bindweed on here. These are two of our pests that we want to pull out wherever we see them. On the left is showing a nice bindweed plant, and that's one that when I pulled it up, it had a nice long root section on it, but that's one that you really have to look out for and stay ahead of. But one of the things that, Michael, when you brought up about not having to do a lot of weeding, that it's just kind of here and there, I find that to be the case, but I also find that just the act of coming through and weeding by hand like this really puts you in touch with a lot of observation within your garden, and it helps you learn kind of what things can stay and what things have to go in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Also,
on the
thing
right,
with
those
weeding,
are little tops of Canadian thistle coming through.
yeah, the thing I find with the weeding, the constant weeding, is the weeds never get a chance to really set in and establish, because you're always putting them under stress, because you're always taking away their nutrient source, which is their leaves. So every time you pull a weed out, it's not to kill it, it's to weaken it to the point where it's manageable. I mean, you can't get rid of bindweed. It's almost impossible, but you have to manage it.
You want to disadvantage
Yes, exactly.
compared to the other plants that are around, is the way that I look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can still back over and over and over and over and over again until the other plants can't really succumb to it.
Yeah.
And that Canadian thistle on the right, that is one that when it starts to colonize an area, it is tough to get rid of. Also approach it kind of like, what you said, Mark, with that they don't really establish themselves. And the other part is that once, it's trying to serve a purpose there. It's a plant that that basically will spread through relatively deep rhizomes, and it has these long roots that then come up from the rhizomes. And it's trying to show up in loose bare soils in order to colonize it and make it something that is more stable, and then die back, and after a couple of years of succession like that, pave the way for the next round of plants to come in. So I never look at things like this as that this is a problem. It's simply a naturally occurring condition of what I have going on here. And this is a plant that is opportunistic in these conditions. You know, it's trying to fill a niche. So one of the things I just always try to stay on top of is when I walk through again, especially this time of year, and I'll do it with a hoe too, where it starts to get heavy, is just start to really, you know, either break them off at the top so that wherever it's sending those rhizomes out, they're not getting enough established above ground growth to really feed the rhizomes, and the rhizomes will die back. Or if it's wet especially, I'll grab with my fingers around the base of it below the thorns and just pull it up. And then I'll take those and I'll throw them on top of the garden soil, because once you have the Canadian thistle up like that, it's not going to reroot itself. It's just going to die back. And this is one where you can see there right behind it to the left corner, there's either a broccoli or kale plant sticking up there right next to the drip tape. So we can go into the next slide if there is one.
Oh, Jimmy, please.
Nope, that's it.
Yeah,
Okay, awesome.
yeah, we're definitely cutting it near the end, but let's try to get some stuff in and shimmy quickly.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Excellent.
Yes, very good. Very forward.
I'm always happy to share. Speaking of
Good.
sharing, if anyone's looking for or needs some more garden seedlings to round out their vegetable garden, I've been doing my surplus free. You know, I tell everyone that if you feel moved to leave a donation to help me kind of continue this, I do donate seedlings to the Farm Workers Center over on Pulaski Highway for their kitchen gardens in the same way. And it just helps me cover the costs for some of my potting mix additives to get the peat moss and perlite that I mix with my compost for my potting mix, and also all of the cell trays and pots that, you know, don't come back. So I'm basically keeping I'm keeping a table this week down at the below the bottom of my driveway. I'm at 18 Horseshoe Lane, which is about a mile past the Edenville light right off of County Route 1. And I'm just stocking that with a bunch of seedlings out there: tomatoes, peppers, onions, broccoli, kale. I think that's about it. And yeah, just encouraging people to come by and take what they can use and spread the word. And if they feel moved to leave a donation for that, you know, I appreciate anything that comes in, and be assured that that's all things that will go towards funding the maintenance and expansion of this project into the future.
Thank you.
Christopher,
Yes.
question, is your garden on the garden tour this year?
No, I'm not on the Warwick Valley Garden Tour. To be honest, you know, my wife and kids are home during the summer. I still have teenage kids, and I did the Dirt Kitchen Garden Tour several years back, and it was very rewarding. But man, it was, for someone who's a production vegetable gardener like me, it was a major disruption, because you end up spending, you know, a full day getting everything cleaned up on your property and ready for everyone to show up. And then the next day you're presenting all day, and then you're kind of behind the 8 ball with the weeding and all the other stuff. So my wife and I kind of made a pact, because she does a lot of wonderful decorative gardens at our house too. And I've been asked to do it before, but we've said we're not doing it until our kids are out of the house. But I do offer, you know, this summer, one of the things I'm going to look at doing is maybe on Saturday mornings, 1 or 2 times a month, to offer up tours of my homestead to small groups, because that's something that I can do, that I'm not as worried with making sure that the whole space is buttoned up for, you know, a mass showing. But to give tours of the homestead, to show my chicken operation, my composting operation, my gardens, you know, that sort of thing, and even some of the buildings and the way we integrate firewood harvesting and doing kind of a coppice management system for that, and you know, for interested parties. And that's something that's just a few hours, you know, probably like an hour to 3 at the most on Saturday mornings. So
how will people find out about that?
I'll give details on that as we get closer to the summer, but it's not going to come for a little while yet.
How do your signs look? Just that last question. How do the
I'll
signs?
make sure that I let Sustainable Warwick know. Yeah, I'll put that on. I'll put it on Facebook. Let Chad know. Chad's a good publicist for me.
How
All
do your
right.
look? How do your signs look that you picked up from us?
Oh, I love them. I love them.
Yeah.
I've already gotten comments on them. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think my neighbor Kate Blitz reached out to you. Might have reached out to you for one too.
There's been so many people, but I can't keep them straight. But I hope she hasn't.
Yeah, that's a wonderful problem to have, Sally.
Because it's been great.
Yeah.
Great to meet
Okay.
you.
Sorry, I'm gonna just in the sake of moving it along. So I apologize for cutting anyone off, but we're all over time, so I just want to make sure that we can all do whatever we have to do after the meeting. So and thank you, Christopher. Your information was extremely helpful and informative. Very good.
Thank you, Mark. Glad to
And Chad
participate.
as well. Yes, it was very great. So I'm going to just say the announcements. The next Zoom garden plot meeting is June 10th. No meeting on the 30th week of the next week or in 2 weeks from now because of Memorial Day. I left this up because that's still May 18th. Greenwood Lake Garden. I don't know what that means. GLGWL.
Greenwood Lake. That's that's our organization. We're having a
Oh, okay. So
hopefully
okay.
it looks like it might rain, but let's hope not.
Okay, that's going to be May 18th from 5:30 to 8:30. Rain date is Sunday, May 19th. Please bring a dish to share with your with your own drinks. We will be firing up the wood burning oven to make artisan pizza. That sounds delicious. For more information and RSVP, and there's a link down there. And then I was asked to add this in. All Farms first annual strawberry jamboree. AOO8 Farm. It's the 221 Craigville Road in Goshen, New York. It's on Saturday, June 22nd. So everyone has plenty of time to plan for that. And fresh strawberries are delicious. And it's going to be from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that sounds like a lot of fun.
My friend's
Love
a farmer at that farm, all for one for all farm, and it's a really great place with regenerative farming.
Yeah, there's nothing like a local grown strawberry.
Well, also, Christopher, you're doing a permaculture class right in Florida Library. You want to mention quick?
Yeah, sure. This Thursday, 16th, 5:30 to 7:30 in the main room at the Florida Public Library. I'll be giving a presentation, kind of an introduction to how to use permaculture to live more regeneratively and resiliently. It's very similar to the presentation I just gave recently at the Albert Wisner Library on April 21st. I know that seating is very limited there and it is a registered event. So if you are interested in attending, we'd love to have you, but make sure you register because I don't even know if there's any seating still left or not.
All right.
Well, that sounds fascinating. That sounds pretty interesting. The permaculture.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm always, just to let you know, I'm always open to giving presentations. I don't look for honorariums or anything like that. It's more about just spreading the word and getting people interested in this. So if anybody ever has a venue that they would like to have something like this done, all I really need is just an LCD camera and a screen, and a Wi-Fi connection for I don't even need the Wi-Fi for my computer because it's on the computer, and I can go ahead and run with that. It's about an hour and 15-minute or so presentation, and then there's always a lively question and answer after.
Thank you. It's always great to there's so many different ways to garden, and anytime that information like that is passed on, it's really good. It's just a really good thing. And permaculture definitely is a good thing. Okay, so question and answer. When do you plant your sorry, spelled that one wrong too again, not warm season plants, warm season plants, which would be basically your tomatoes, your squash, your beans, your peppers, your eggplants. Anyone want to start the conversation?
I'm going to start maybe Sunday into next week. It's been pretty chilly here in Warwick in the evening lately, and our garden is very exposed on a hill, so I'm not ready to sacrifice the tomato and pepper plants.
Hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I already jumped in on that one.
Everyone has their own opinion. It's such a
I
gamble.
have all of my tomatoes and peppers in, but I also have a garden that faces south, and it's a slightly south, or it's a slight
But
slope.
Christopher, that you did
It's
you did a little
south-facing.
earlier than usual, right?
I did. That a lot of that is due to climate change. With the change in the zone, I was monitoring the low temperatures very closely, but as soon as we got to the point that nothing was dipping down below 40 again, I knew I was good in the long-term forecast. The latest that I've seen a hard frost here that wiped things out was May 17th.
We had one here in Montgomery, I think it was 2 years ago, that was May 20th or 21st. So that,
Wow.
and a lot of people got caught behind it. So it made me a lot more cautious. I always tended to go for the third week, but I started getting a little more braver, uh, and I lost a couple, but some people got wiped out. So now I'm back to maybe the third or even Memorial Day. It's just, unfortunately, with the climate change, it seems like it gets warm, but it also gets a little, it's not consistent,
Right.
Yeah,
And-
it's erratic.
and that-
Yeah.
yeah, and that really screws it up, screws us up. The community garden is in a park that's on a hill, and it tends to be 5 degrees cooler than the village, which is 5 minutes by car, maybe 2 miles, not even 2 miles. It's a pretty dramatic little microclimate we have over there. So I try to be cautious.
One year I kind of tried a few plants early, fairly early, just to see. And what I discovered was the plants I put out early, I wasn't so much concerned about it killing frost, but the plants I put out more towards the end of May caught up with the first ones in a really short amount of time because it was better growing conditions for them. So given our garden is not in my backyard, and if it does get too cold, I don't want to be the one going over there freaking out about what's going on. So I just wait.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you can stunt the growth. It'll eventually catch up, but
Yeah, I didn't gain anything.
yeah.
But around here, there's like a ton of little microclimates, so you really just have to know what's going on in your particular garden.
Yeah, I agree. It's really local sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but and it's also a chance. I mean, the weather can change. This week was supposed to be in the 60s, and then now I see 76 tomorrow. So
Yeah, I know.
never
It's
know.
like crazy.
Yeah.
All right, I
So
gotta head out. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
okay, well,
All
okay,
right.
Chad. Good luck with the Rangers.
Yo,
I do
yeah,
have one last. I do have one last slide, and this is the upcoming weather. Speaking of weather, for the next 9 days, I did for Montgomery. Since I was creating the slides, I figured I'd show my weather up here. So anyway, I know you guys are all down south from me, but this is our weather for the next 9 days, and you can see Tuesday. I mean, I think my wife told me it wasn't getting out of the 60s the whole week, and well, she's right for the most part, but it looks like tomorrow's going to be close to 70. It's going to be probably 80 by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah.
It's those
And-
nighttime temperatures.
It actually,
Tomatoes
warm-
like over 60 degrees at night.
yeah, but they'll do. I mean, I've always heard that if it's over 50, you're okay. Like if it dips in the 40s, it can cause issues. But it warmed up because 2 weeks ago it was saying that every night was going to be in the 40s, and now it's up to the 50s. So
Yeah, like I said, I'm not worried about them dying. I just found I didn't gain anything, so
yeah, I'm not picking mine up till
Well,
next Wednesday anyway. So I
Yeah,
can't put them in.
I think one of the things to keep in mind too is that you may not be gaining anything above ground when the temperature is a little bit colder, but the plant's roots are still working below ground like that. So a lot of times when the weather is a little bit cooler, it may be putting a little bit more of its energy below ground at that time.
Oh,
I got tired of messing with my grow lights, so everything went out. And they look great. I don't know.
I'm gonna just. I think that was the last slide, but I just wanted to mention. I'm gonna go. I found a place in New Jersey called Chili Plants. I think chiliplants.com, and it's supposedly the largest supplier they have the largest variety of peppers in the world. They grow a lot of the super hot peppers for like farmers and growers in like Texas. Anyway, I found them on a website. I think it's if I don't know if anyone wants to go on the website and I'm going to go pick it up in person. If anyone wants to go on the website, I'll make an offer, and you can get a hold of me, and you order it. I'll pick it up for you, and we'll find a way to get it. I'll figure out a way to get it to you down wherever you are. So, and I think it's called Chili Plants. It's in New Jersey. It's like Chili Plants. If I can get it up there really quick, I don't want to hold anyone up, but New Jersey, right there. Okay, I can throw that in the Cross Country Nurseries. Let me open it up and get. There we go. I'm going to pop this into the chat. So if anyone, and somebody also emailed me or chatted last week about irises. I apologize for not getting back to you. The offer's still there for the irises. I forget who it was, but I do have.
It was for irises. It was me, Yelena.
Okay, Elena. I will. I promise, and I will get a hold of you. The irises you can go anytime, so don't worry about it. They're bearded irises. They're tough as nails. You don't have to even plant them. You can just throw them on the ground. They'll root. But anyway, I will get them to you. That's the website there. Just get a hold of me if you want anything. They supposedly have the biggest variety in the world, and they also have a very big stock of tomatoes. So if you're into different varieties and different experiments with that, just let me know, and I can always pick it up for you. I'm going down there next Wednesday, I think. Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember which day. But
Thank
it'll
you.
be next week. So
Thanks for the offer.
Yep, no problem.
Okay.
I'm sure
Okay,
everyone's up to their eyeballs in tomatoes, but I have a lot of extra if anyone.
Yeah. It's kind of late this year, and everyone's got their stuff in. But I mean, the offer will be there next year too. I mean, I don't plan on going away. So if I'm still here and I'm still gardening, then and I still like the place, I'll check it out for you. If it's worth it. If it's not worth it, then I'll let you know. But if it's worth it, the offer will be there for next year too.
No, I just mean that I have like 40 tomato plants of like 4 different varieties if anybody needs any. There's like Black Beauty,
Oh,
Bradford
gotcha.
Grape, New Jersey Devil, and Abe Lincoln. I'm sure everyone
I'm the
has
kind of
enough,
person
but
who, if I have 8 tomato plants, I want all 8 different varieties. I don't like doubling up. I like to see what I get. But anyway, yeah. Thanks very much. So I guess that should end the meeting.
Yeah.
We'll see you in June 10th. And I guess we're good. How'd it go, Christy? Okay?
Yep, we're good. We're
Good.
good. All right,
Okay.
everybody. Have a good couple of weeks. We'll see you soon.
Okay,
night.
take care.
Okay,
Good night,
bye.
everybody.
Thank you.